So let's pivot now and to the defense, man. I want to get your thoughts on
Boy.
where the defense went wrong. What was the carryover from the Packers game? We're going to show a bunch of that film, and just give me what you got, man, because this is going to be. It's I don't want to say it's completely ugly because when it comes to run defense and run fits, we actually like doing it. It takes a lot of time to diagnose and break
Yeah.
down, but it's fun because it's almost like deconstructing something and seeing like, okay,
Yeah.
who was supposed to be in this fit, who boxed on this play, who spilled on that play. Like, it's fun to kind of put the pieces back together on why something went wrong versus when it's easy to just pick out the good plays, right? When you're talking offense or defense, it's a lot easier.
Oh, yeah, tremendously. It's easier to figure out what went right than it is to figure out what went wrong. And, we were talking off air about how long it took us to go through the defensive film for this week. One, because the Bills were on the field for a lot, but two, just there were some things that went wrong with the run fit aspect of this defense. The biggest takeaway for me is, ironically, the Jets offensive coordinator is a LaFleur and the brother of Coach LaFleur from the Green Bay Packers the
Right?
week before, of course.
Yeah.
And you saw a lot of similar concepts in terms of how the Jets attacked the Bills. You saw some pre-snap motion. You saw the Jets using aspects of alignment, and especially in coupling with that motion of pulling Bills defenders from the box and figuring out, okay, if we do this motion, if we do this jet motion, they're going to shift. And when they shift to the left, we know we're running this run play to the right. And now all of a sudden we bump them over a gap because they pushed and now we have an advantage. Or just pulling defenders from the box and creating opportunities where you had 6 or 7 men on the line for the Jets and one less defender in the box, or even. How many times we in this game did we see, just like against the Packers, we saw 6 on the line for the Jets and 6 in the box for the Bills, or 7 on the line for the Jets, 7 in the box for the Bills? Now, people might think, well, that's cool, like it's 7 on 7. But that's not the way it works, because if you've got 7 men on the line for the Jets, that means there's 8 gaps. So if you only have 7 defenders in the box, that means there's one more gap than you have defenders. Then you add in the aspects of pullers and running gap schemes, and you're shifting gaps and moving gaps. And then on top of it, another big takeaway for me is this is another game where, not completely similar to what happened against the Colts, but where a team used the Bills' one gapping penetration against them and allowed them to get upfield and create holes. I think both of us, we mentioned it in the offseason and at points this year, wanting the Bills to do more gap and a half. We've seen Daquan Jones do it several times this year. The Bills one gap more in this game, got upfield, and we saw some of those plays where they would kind of play into the Jets' hands, not to mention the run stunts and the run blitzes where they allowed themselves to get pinned. And it was just a lot of things that kind of went sideways and went wrong. And I wonder if teams continue to use that mode of attack against the Bills now that we've seen it work a couple times last year and again these last couple of weeks.
Yeah, as you said, the defense is a one gap up the field, attacking, aggressive, defensive front, especially. And so, yes, they're gonna, especially like the 3-tech at Oliver, when they're putting Jordan Phillips there, they're not guys that are being asked to just occupy versus the run. They want them penetrating, being disruptive. And same with the linebackers. They specifically Milano, he's put in a situation where they allow him to freelance and really just fire his gun and make those tackles and be disruptive. It's a disruptive defense. So when teams counter them with gap runs, as you said, power, counter tray, some pin and pull stuff, that really can outflank the defense, and specifically up the middle against those defensive tackles that are attacking up the field, which we'll see in the film. It takes a lot more discipline when you're playing against a gap run, and it really goes against their entire philosophy as an attacking style defense. Because they don't want them to not pin their ears back, whether it's run or pass. They want them being aggressive and being disruptive. So if they can't just penetrate and be disruptive because they have to worry about a back or down block, or they have to worry about a deuce block on the front side getting displaced vertically, not able to split that double team because it's a really good double team block, that goes against their entire nature as a unit and also as an individual put into that role. And so what the Bills tried doing is they ran a lot of run blitzes. Some people call them run stunts. I call them a run blitz because more times than not, if they send that 5th guy as a run blitzer, if it ends up being a pass, it's a blitz. So I always call it a run blitz. And we're going to see several of those. So people we're asking like, hey, and I think I see a comment right here. It says from Pete, my issue with the scheme was allowing the same run to burn us again and again. But the funny thing is, as you'll see, whether we're talking in this game or we're talking from the Packers to this game, when they were running those counter trey runs, the Bills actually pulled out different things. They tried some of those run blitzes from the field or from the boundary. They tried inserting a guy late to, again, be disruptive, stay true to their scheme and their aggressiveness, but do something a little different to combat it. And the Packers still hit them once or twice.
Yeah.
And some of it was just pure luck, as you'll see in some of these. But some of them are just like, okay, that didn't work. We have to go back to the drawing board. So there were adjustments, guys, and you're going to see some of that. But aside from the scheme stuff, and the thing that's crept up almost every year really is missed tackles, right? In this game, they missed 12 tackles, according to PFF. And on the year, according to SIS, they have a 12.9 missed tackle percentage. And in prior years, so in 2021, it was 9.4%. So they're a little better last year. Year before that, 10.4%. And in 2019, they had a missed tackle percentage of 12.2. So when you have a game where you miss 12 tackles, 14 tackles, 16 tackles, they've done that a couple times this year. Usually it's missed tackles and missed run fits, being out of position, processing late to a play, and you're out of position not to make a proper tackle or wrap up. And we're seeing that every once in a while when it comes to the Bills defense, when early on the first few games, they were actually pretty good.
Yeah, I was going to say the majority of this year, because I think poor tackling has, like you mentioned, some of the numbers, it's unfortunately been like a hallmark of this defense the last couple of years. And we didn't really see it early on, especially against a team like the Chiefs and the multitude of games they played early on. Open field tackling and tackles in the holes and around the line of scrimmage was a strength of this defense, but we didn't see it against Green Bay. We saw it rear its ugly head against the Jets. And when you couple that with getting out gapped or allowing yourself to be pinned and taken advantage of internally, it just compounds your mistakes and it compounds the disadvantageous positions that you're in. And also with just the nature of how the Bills attack and that one gapping nature, one thing like I want to mention that I feel like people also forget too, even in this game against the Jets where the Jets ran the ball well, the Bills had several plays on defense where they created tackles for loss because of their ability to penetrate and get upfield. So sometimes it really works. Even in a game where it was bad, they had multiple instances where they're getting stops for 2, 3, 4 yards in the backfield. But then you have to take the good with the bad. And sometimes it's that risk reward. And when it works, it's beautiful. And when it doesn't, you get gashed for like 15 yards.
Yeah. And so we're going to break down, I think there's like 8 or 9 plays here. So this is early in the game. We are looking at the first quarter, 2:03 on the clock. Jets do get a field goal on this drive, but this is a run blitz. And so you see the 4 down linemen, but you also see the safety coming down. There are different ways to present it. Sometimes it's a safety. Sometimes it's Terrence Johnson. Sometimes it's a cat blitz, a corner coming off the edge, like the first play where Dane Jackson blew that up. That was a nice little run blitz from him in the boundary. But here, what you're going to see is you're going to see Lawson, Oliver, and Settle slant to the backside gap. And then you have Johnson coming off the edge. And so the Jets, they're running counter trays. So you have the tight end and you have the guard pulling to the boundary side. So this is a blitz, a run blitz from the field, the wide side of the field. And the Jets are running away from it, but you see the disruption that it creates. So here's Settle. Now he's occupying 2 because he hit that backside gap. You have Von Miller having to take on that blocker. And then you just see them, they just string it wide. The penetration by Ed Oliver, like look at him come across here and just
his slant is perfect.
Yeah, and that could have been a hold, which we'll talk about holds in this game. But either way, you see Edmonds and Bernard clean up on the back end. But that's what a run blitz looks like. You're sending the defensive lineman, slanting them backside, and then you bring a guy off the edge. Again, corner, safety, could be anyone coming off the edge. And this was one of those plays that worked. And the Bills ran this. I charted it. They ran this type of play 17 times. 9 of them were against the run, and they surrendered 25 yards against the run. They sent 8 of these that turned into passes. Again, this, regardless of what happens, run or pass, this is still a blitz if it's a pass. So it's counted as a blitz. They did it 8 times for 54 yards. The most notable one was when Saran Neal got matched up one-on-one with Garrett Wilson, which
great.
Was sick. So I digress. I'm getting on a tangent here, but 17 times this happened. This play, it worked out well.
That's a huge piece, like real quick. That run blitz piece counting as like an overall blitz. This ties back into something we talked about last year where Mac Jones was one of the most blitz quarterbacks in the league, and it wasn't because
Yeah.
teams were blitzing Mac Jones for the pass. They were run blitzing the
Stop the run.
Patriots run game. Exactly. But then it counts as a blitz still if it's
Mhm.
play action or if he ends up throwing it and dropping back. So it skews numbers a bit.
Stats can lie.
Stats can lie, but the film does not. And this is really well done. Yeah, you get that run stunt, you get the slant inside. And this is when, again, this is what we're talking about here. Like when it works, it's beautiful. You create displacement, you get upfield. There's nowhere to go for the Jets on this play. James Robinson has nothing. The works are completely gummed up. Even though Miller doesn't make this play and Robinson breaks the tackle, you've got Edmonds and Bernard scraping over the top, and they're able to get there clean because of the chaos that the run blitz and the stunt up front created. It's a really nice timed call. It works out really well. But here's the thing too, like, and I'm sure we'll get to an example of it. Say the defense was slanting the other way. All of a sudden you're at a huge disadvantage because you're slanting into the pins and the down blocks, and then all of a sudden you're done. And if that happens, that's where you see some of those gouging runs and those gap runs. So that's where that risk reward comes in, like, because it's a risk where if it's timed wrong, you're going to get gashed. But the reward is if you time it right and call it against the right kind of run from the right side, like the Bills do on this play, it creates a negative play for your defense.
Yeah, and that's a great lead for pretty much most of these clips because, again, counter tray away from the blitz, all right? Counter tray away. This is the same exact play as I'll show you in a few plays that the Packers ran in the game last week, and they're getting 20, 30 yards a pop. Counter tray, this one away from the blitz. You'll see both versions of this later in the breakdown here. So here's another play, another run play. This is a crack toss that gained 25 yards on this play. And this is where you start to see some of the missed tackles and the lack of not having Milano. But more importantly, I think Bernard did enough to be just fine at the linebacker position with no Milano. But not having Poyer really hurt the Bills here. Watch Jaquan Johnson, who I have circled on this crack toss. You see Dane Jackson get out leverage there, and then just a missed tackle. 1 of 3 on the day from Jaquan Johnson. I know that's your boy, but he had a rough day. But you can see as he comes downhill, he has a decision to make: shoot this gap or go out wide. And you see him get kind of caught in the wash, and right there, he's trying to string the play and leverage the play. He's doing a good job. But now is when you need him to turn on those Jets, and he just doesn't have it. He's not in a position to make the tackle. Carter's a really good running back. He has good balance as well. He breaks that tackle for a nice game.
This play in a nutshell is like what, unfortunately, Jaquan Johnson is. Like, he's a dog around the line of scrimmage, but we'll just focus on this piece here. Like, he's a really smart player. Like, he reads this right. He watches Dane Jackson come inside on this play as he strings it along. So he sees Dane go inside, so he goes outside. But he has those athletic limitations. And against a running back, I love that you mentioned Carter. Carter's a sweet running back. When Breece Hall went down, I was like, okay, they're going to lean into Michael Carter. He's sweet. And then they traded for James Robinson. I was like, okay, maybe not. But Carter's got speed, right? They're stacked. Even Ty Johnson is a good running back. But Carter's got speed. He's got burst. So he's got long speed. He's got short area burst. And because he's shorter, he's got that contact balance and that low center of gravity. And you see him kicking into a different gear as he gets around the corner. And Jaquan Johnson just doesn't have that speed and that quickness to be able to get there and shut him down. He reads it right, but he's not able to get there. But that's also too, right? Like, that's a piece of the run fit aspect. Like, it's a coordinated dance. And if somebody is slightly off in their execution, it can blow up the whole run fit. Like, it's Jaquan Johnson on this play, but sometimes it's a defensive end. Sometimes it's an interior player, like a defensive tackle or a linebacker. Like, run fits are a very complicated piece that's why it's a team defense piece. You know, Jaquan Jones talked about it when we had him. Like, it's complicated. It takes everyone. And on this instance, you know, it forced the play into Jaquan Johnson. He just didn't have the athleticism and the speed to be able to bring down Carter.
Yeah, and the other thing I want you guys to take note of on this crack toss, and last week, and I think Von Miller mentioned it in his presser after the game, is how on some of these runs, the Jets use 2 guys to block them and not 1. And this is one thing that we talked about with Daquan and even some of the other film rooms, is how well the defensive line's playing against the run and how it's making the job easier for linebackers. But look at what they do on this crack. So you get the crackback block from Mims there. That's expected on this play schematically. But normally this guy is not doubling on Von. And the Jets did a great job in this game. And again, there's going to be some plays you're going to see is like, okay, that's a hold on Lawson. And it happened twice because Jack Lawson is one of the best edge setting defensive ends in the game. And they did something similar to this on him on a couple of times. And again, I think a hold should have been called. But keep this in mind because this is something that the Jets did really well to get the ball on the perimeter. The Jets had 9 rushing attempts outside the tight ends here, outside on the perimeter for 70 yards. This was one they broke off. But they were able to do these things to seal the edge there, to seal the really good defensive end for the Bills that
not good
do a good job at setting the edge. But in this game, they just didn't. So keep an eye on that. Again, these little nuggets that LaFleur kind of put in there to really to secure things for that run game.
And you know what it's similar to? Some of the runs that the Colts had last year where they set it up so that it would be Jonathan Taylor one-on-one against Tre'Davious White, because they would set up those traps and those down blocks to take out the edge and the linebacker and put those bigger bodies blockers on defensive backs or one-on-one opportunities. It's a smart little wrinkle teams can do if they can anticipate what the Bills normally try to do.
Right. And so here's another run blitz from the field, 2:26 left in the second quarter, 3rd and 1 situation. This is a big play. So the Jets run inside zone right here. The Bills are sending, again, these guys are all slanting inside. They're having Hamlin come off the edge. This is when it works, it's beautiful. Like you said, it forces 4th down here. And I think this is the one. Is this the one where they faked it and got it? Either way, 3rd and 1 situation here. Hamlin, again, coming late. Those guys are slanting inside. There's nowhere to go inside. He's beautiful. Forced to kind of bounce it. And Hamlin's there to make the tackle. Hell of a player. I think he's a future starter in this league. He's been playing great in the Bills scheme here. Hamlin brings down the running back on that run blitz.
He times this up perfectly. Like you can watch him start to creep and anticipate it, and then he just shoots it. But, you know, and I don't want to take away from Hamlin, but I want to highlight the team. Oh, beautiful. The sideline angle. Like watch Hamlin as he doesn't completely give it away, and then he times it, and he is so good at timing these run blitzes. He started it against Miami. He's continued it.
Packers last week in the hole or in the game against A.J. Dillon.
He's really good. And he showed, I mean, again, I don't think it's surprising. Like he showed this at Pitt, and Pitt, that Pat Narduzzi defense, a very easy transition to the NFL for him and Dane Jackson. But you see that well-timed blitz. He comes down on a proper angle with force, makes the tackle. But for me, like I know he ends up on the ground. AJ Epinesa, that slant inside, Robinson has nowhere to go but to go to DeMar Hamlin. Plus, you combine that with Ed Oliver inside. Ed Oliver slants inside, rips through that arm. The middle is completely gone, right? And then between the guard and tackle is also completely gone. Now that B gap is done because AJ Epinesa has slanted through. This is like the
keep that in mind. And keep that in mind because it comes into play later.
Big time. This is a play, I think, where in a vacuum, someone sees it and is like, man, this is an amazing play by DeMar Hamlin. But this happens because of the other puzzle pieces being Ed Oliver and also AJ Epinesa. Their play forces James Robinson to DeMar Hamlin. Hamlin has to execute, which he does, but that was well-timed and well-designed, and that's how team defense works in run fits, which is what they are.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, it reminds me of the draft footage when they had him in the hotel room and Eric, I think it was it Eric Washington interviewing him, and he was asking him about his technique, and he was talking about first step being horizontal, then vertical. That's exactly what that is. He was talking about a run blitz that Iowa uses. Again, a similar system you talked about in Narduzzi at Pitt. So does Iowa, and they asked Epinesa to do that a lot. And it reminds me of that draft footage in the hotel room when they were interviewing him. So we're going to go to the 4th quarter. All right. So obviously this is what it came down to. Like if you go and watch the locker room speech from Saleh, this is the first like game ball he gave away. It was this drive in the 4th quarter. Bills couldn't make a stop. So 4th quarter, 7:53 on the clock. The Jets are backed up, man. This is an ideal situation. And you see another run blitz called. They're running the counter tray. Again, same play the Packers had run. And honestly, the Packers did it out of a 2-back set with Dillon and Jones, and then they would motion Dillon that way. And here, I think they used Elijah Moore as kind of that eye candy. Either way.
Yeah, it's the only thing Elijah Moore did in this game.
Yeah, that was an awesome clip. Whoever did that was a funny clip. A highlight reel of him doing orbit motion. And
with the fire emojis.
Oh, man, that was funny. So counter tray into the blitz. So you have the tight end and the guard pulling into the blitz, and you see what happens here. And the Bills actually do a good job on this play. So you got the slanting Epinesa here. right? He's got to get across the face of that guy. That guy says, oh, guess what? I'm just going to wash you down. So he throws him. So immediately that hole is now wide open. But watch, Daquan Jones does a great job at nose tackle here. He recognizes it right there. He recognizes that block coming down on him, and he fights fire with fire and tosses that guy. That's great. Like, he wants to go make a play. Awesome. You have the linebackers coming up. You have Bernard boxing the play in. Beautiful. So what is he doing? Playing outside in. He wants to take on that block with the inside shoulder, keep that runner inside. The Bills have this guy hemmed in. But bad luck here. Daquan Jones trying to make a play, cuts off. Edmonds takes Edmonds out of the play after the runner ran up the back of his blocker. That's just dumb luck right there. And then he gets upfield, gets them out of a jam there with their backs against a goal line. Like, it was just an unfortunate play. But as you can see, how little things just add up to not necessarily, this is not even really a horrible run fit. You know, this was just bad luck. Daquan Jones was about to make a play, but then he runs into his own guy, takes Edmonds out. It's just unfortunate on this play because the Bills had it hemmed in.
And you can see Edmonds come up and, like, Phil, he sees Daquan Jones coming, so he shifts a little bit. Like, this play is dead to rights. It's done. And James Robinson bounces back because Bernard jacks up Uzama. So,
he
like
did
you
that
said,
all day too.
I saw some people in the chat talking about how Bernard had a horrible game. I disagree, and I know you do as well. Especially for it being his, like, real first game action. And Robinson runs up the back of Uzama, but it causes him to back up a little bit.
Yep.
It messes up the angle of Daquan Jones, and he literally goes over James Robinson. Robinson's able to duck underneath him now because of the momentum, and he's stopped, but Daquan Jones is still going. And then Daquan Jones cuts off Tremaine Edmonds, and it's done. And then you mentioned it to me on Twitter. Like, as this play goes on, watch Tremaine Edmonds just be like, dude, looking back at Daquan Jones. But it's unfortunate. And this is an example too. I mean, someone will probably be like, well, you guys, always do this. If you're watching this play and your takeaway is, man, Tremaine Edmonds sucks and he fits the run horribly, that's not the takeaway. That's not the right takeaway. Like, you mentioned it. Then this is another great example. This is one of those plays where all the little breadcrumbs and all these things work out negatively in this aspect, but this play does not work because of one person. It's just literally bad luck. Look at, like, if you showed this clip to someone and said, how many yards did this run go for? Maybe someone's like, well, maybe he falls forward and gets 1 or 2. The odds of you being like, oh, well, he gets like 12, 13 yards on this run. Like, who's betting that? No one's betting that because this play looks dead to rights. It's just bad luck. Like, and I know that's not enough for some people, especially when your team loses and you want blood and you want to know who to blame and who to call out. But that was a good call, and it was actually set up well. It just happened to not work.
All right. And so you guys are seeing the screen now, and you're probably like, well, why do you have Packers footage up here? I wanted to show you guys what the Bills did differently. Obviously, we showed you them running that run blitz against the counter tray looks. And so I wanted to show you what happened the prior week. And so, Anthony, you talked about it. Some of the things the Packers did to pull guys out of the box. So this little action here pulls Taron Johnson out of the box. So now it becomes a 6-man box. They run that counter tray. Tight end, guard, pulling, and you can see what happens on this play. Now, again, you talked about being short in the box. They are short a man in the box here, and so everyone's covered up here. And so that's when the running back hit it here. So when people say, well, it just really bugged me that, the Jets did the same exact plays that worked but from the Packers. Well, guess what? The Bills did try to do something different. It just things like that happen. The Daquan Jones play, like that, it was just unfortunate at times. Sometimes, yes, it was there was some fault, missed tackles and whatnot. But you see here, like this play from the Packers game, same exact play we already broken down several times. I just wanted to show you guys, how different it was versus the Jets and why things happen, that context. So now we go back to the Jets game, right? So here it is again, counter trade. This is like the damn near same play, right? Counter tray away from the blitz. You have Johnson coming from the left side from the field here. So now watch what happens on this play. Again, keep an eye on Daquan Jones, who I have circled, and then the tight end coming across the formation. So Bills have this gummed up, right? Here are the guys slanting inside. Here comes the blitz from the secondary. But watch what happens. You talked about Epinesa getting across the face that one play. This play, he doesn't. And so everything is gummed up for the front side here. Everything is taken away. This is all taken away. Tremaine Edmonds is flowing with the tight end because the Bills are in man coverage. So as that tight end comes across, he's flowing with him. What happens is Epinesa doesn't get across the face of this guy. And then what opens up? That gap. And that's when the running back can cut up inside. There's a hold right there.
Huge hold.
Phillips. It's not called. And the Jets are into the third level. So here's the context and nuance from this game. Same exact play. Bills sent a blitz on this one. You see what happens when a guy, Daquan Jones was asked after the game, what happened? Missed tackles and run fits. Here's a missed run fit by Epinesa, and it cost him on this play.
And this is too, I had a couple people come through and say, oh, like, this is on Jaquan Johnson for the bad run fit, and it's not. He's filling on that outside, and even more so, watch Jaquan Johnson come down because you hit it. He sees Epinesa. Epinesa is going inside, so Johnson has to stay outside. If they both go inside, go ahead.
Also, there's that zone read piece.
Yes,
he is also the QB keeper.
Thank you. He has to honor
because he's slanting inside.
Correct. And that's a very viable thing against Zach Wilson, who has legs and is mobile and can use them. So Johnson does his job, and Epinesa looks like he's about to do his, and Dwayne Brown is just really big and really strong. Locks him right up. Epinesa cannot get through. And that's the big one. Like, I don't like to be that person that goes through and, well, this should have been a flag, and this play is dead if Jordan Phillips doesn't get held. Like, he literally gets grabbed and bear hugged. You can see his jersey getting yanked up on the back too. He gets grabbed around his arm. It's an unfortunate flag that isn't thrown. But again, that's where you can see, like, if you're off in your run fit just a little bit, all it takes is one person to be off in some way and things can crumble a little bit. Then you have the added piece of a hold that wasn't called on this play. And it's just a beautiful alley for James Robinson to get north and south.
Yeah, unfortunate for the Bills again. This is one of those drives, like, you just got to get them off the field, and they just couldn't. So next play is obviously same drive. This is a lot to process for a defense, especially the linebackers. This is the same type of plays that the Rams used versus the Bills. Was it 2-3 years ago? Maybe it was 2020. It was week 3 where Henderson went off. They used the same type of thing. So you got the jet action across the formation, but then post-snap, you have the split flow from the tight end coming across the crack, the backside defensive end. But again, I mentioned earlier, Mims' alignment. You check it here. Watch Shaq Lawson on this play. We alluded to it earlier. So split zone here, and watch what Mims does to Lawson. So Lawson he's all over it. He's all over this play. He's like, I got to set the edge. I got to contain this play. They're running that wide zone with, the split coming across the formation, the sift block from the tight end. So you see him recognize it, but Mims is there to slow him up, allows Brown to get up on him. And again, I talk about, like, that was a great job from Shaq Lawson. He just didn't have the legs there, but more importantly, neither did Jaquan Johnson here. Watch Johnson. Yeah. Everyone the gaps are pretty lined up really nicely, but that action with the jet action, the receiver coming across the formation, but also this sift block from the tight end, that's what the Bills call a back call. So both the linebackers and even Johnson on this play at the second level, they have to bump over a couple gaps because of those gaps being added, just like pullers, right? So that puts the playmakers in this defense on the backside of a play like this. So Edmonds and Bernard aren't even in the play here. It's left up to Johnson here, and hope, this is Hamlin or Poyer, there's a good chance that guy's getting taken down. But now you're relying on Johnson to, again, chase Michael Carter down. He doesn't have it. Carter gets the corner and a big run.
Yeah, this is an example of, again, something that the Packers did the previous week, like forcing the Bills to play slower a little bit and using some of their fast-flowing nature as a defense and using that against them. And by having them have to honor that flash and that misdirection of the tight end there, all it takes is that slight bit of hesitation. And when you got a running back that has real juice like Michael Carter, boom, he can go. Like, you have the arrows like perfectly diagrammed. Like, if John, and look where Johnson's head is at. He sees Uzama flashing across, and he hesitates that split second. And when you're somebody who is already not the most fleet of foot, to put it nicely for Jaquan Johnson, any level of hesitation kind of puts you at a disadvantage. And then Shaq isn't able to set that edge. So then Johnson has to flow over and scrape over the top instead
And just
of being able to
imagine,
come
man, if
through.
Mims doesn't slow Shaq Lawson down, there's no way Brown is going to get a piece of him. This is
No,
contained.
he's
But this
done.
little
And
detail right
then
here, it just
and
makes
then
the difference.
exactly. And then he contains, and what does Jaquan Johnson get to do? He gets to come forward where his
Play his
strength
gap.
is.
Yeah,
He's
downhill.
tremendous around the line of scrimmage, and in those holes around the line, he gets to come square to the line of scrimmage, and boom, it's boxed in. But it's those little details. It's those little pieces that it takes the slightest, smallest, subtlest little piece. And again, kudos to the Jets. Well-designed play, knowing what kind of opponent they have and designing something to take advantage of it. And it's still like a hair, a fraction that just makes all the difference.
Yeah, like I said, if that's Hamlin or Poyer, or I think they can make that play. So, moving on to the next play here. So we've always talked about, especially in the second half of that Green Bay game, how they just invited the run. They're playing a 6-man box. You're going to see that happen here with 4:18 on the clock here. First and 15 situation here. Single back power. So one puller, backside puller. You see the right guard pulling to right to left on the screen. And they're running that power into the boundary. 6 guys to start. That 7th run defender is Jaquan Johnson again. But again, he's coming from depth on this play on 1st and 15. And we talked about the penetrating style and how that can really screw you sometimes. That really opens things up for Ed Oliver. And you can see how it washes him right out of the play. You see Bernard come downhill, enter into his gap, and then the 7th run defender is picked off. Jaquan Johnson picked off by Mims again. So then they have to ask Dane Jackson to replace. You get the crack, push to the safety. You have a replacement player in the corner and Jackson, and he isn't able to make the tackle on the running back. So you can see how, plays like this with a light box, you're outnumbered. You talked about it, and you don't have enough guys in the box on this play, and your 7th guy is slow to recognize the push crack from the wide receiver, and they are able to crease you on this play and get a really, really nice gain on single back power.
Yeah, and then even on this one too, like someone who is such a sure tackler, not even just for like a corner, just for anybody, Dane Jackson is so solid. He comes forward and he misses the tackle on Michael Carter. Like Carter's just running through DBs and arm tackles left and right in this game. And then Dane stayed down after this play for a minute. It looked like he kind of banged up his arm a little bit. But again, that's that piece. Like they're going to one gap and they're going to get upfield. That puts you at a potential, there's some sort of risk there inherently against gap scheme runs. And then when you don't have the numbers advantage and you're out gapped and the math doesn't work, you're at an even bigger advantage. And you highlighted it right there. Like Oliver's sealed, like you're done. Conklin is coming down. He bangs on Bernard. You got the puller cracking down on Lawson. Carter's through the line and he is completely untouched. And then he gets one-on-one with the corner as Mims comes on that crack. And Dane Jackson, something that he's done time and time again. Dane Jackson is like the prototypical poster child for crack replace. He's just not able to make the tackle. You got 78 flowing to Edmonds. Like everything.
Yeah, he's not hindered. Like he's not slowed down because of that just one gap attacking style of Ed Oliver. He doesn't slow him down. He doesn't have to execute a deuce blocker combination or double team at the point of attack. He's free to get to the linebackers, which of course that's like why the Bills defense has been so good is because the linebackers have been clean. This isn't one of those plays. And they're just able to gash them. And it's just something we have to start keeping an eye on. Are these gap runs against the Bills defense, aggressive uphill defense? Like, are they going to become a thing? Because you're seeing it 2 weeks in a row. You're seeing counter trades. You're seeing those power runs. And you're seeing a lot of those plays get, really, really good runs. So I believe this is the last play here. Yeah, last play here. So I wanted to show you a similar play to that last one. So, another gap run, but watch the run fit. So this is a good run fit after, another run blitz call here. You're seeing the run blitz, the counter trade into the run blitz here. And it's just another good fill, first of all, by Bernard on this play, man. Like a great job of boxing that play in. So right guard, tight end, right to left on your screen. You see Hamlin money, boxes that in. He boxes that in. Here comes a tight end. And then guess what? You have a free guy right in the hole there. It's pretty when it works as far as run fits go. But too often against the Jets, there were just some minor things that went wrong, whether it's a missed tackle, whether it's a misfit in the run game, or just luck, bad luck, right? And that happens. That's, stuff like that happens in the game.
Yeah, in a game that is so full of variables like football. And again, you have like just think about the nature of it. Like football right here, like you have 11 on 11. You've got 22 different individuals, all with different responsibilities, trying to work together on their individual side of the ball to reach one common goal. Like there's just way too many variables that can lead to anything and everything on any possible play. But like you said, when it works, it's really pretty. You get the slant from the defensive line on this one. Again, another positive rep for Shaq against the run, cuts right through Brown, gums him up. I love, we mentioned it briefly and we haven't highlighted him too much in this episode, but Terrell Bernard coming forward in this game with a physical presence, taking on blockers. We saw it on the misexecution on the goal line or on the 4-yard line to start this drive. But this time it works perfectly because there's no Daquan Jones to fall into Tremaine Edmonds. So he boxes this. Robinson cuts back inside right into the waiting arms of Tremaine Edmonds, who slow plays this beautifully, and he's right in the hole.
3-yard gain. That's it.
That's it. And that's what you want. Like with this defense, you want to stay ahead of the sticks and keep plugging away and going through. And it's again, all these little details. Sometimes they work in your favor and it's a good play. And sometimes they work against you and you get gashed. And that's I think, something that until we see a change, which I don't necessarily think we will, because like you mentioned, like the Bills at heart, they want to be a one gap penetrating front. This is going to be that world that they're going to have to live in. You're going to see like a tackle in the backfield from -3 or -4, and then you're going to see a run for like 12, 13, 14 yards because if somebody's off, somebody misses a tackle, or if the right play call is timed it the right way, or their box is too light, or they blitz this way and it's a gap scheme the other way and they're out leveraged, or somebody gets pulled. That's the nature of the beast at this point. And unfortunately, the pendulum swung against them in this game, and especially all on that last drive. It was just unfortunate. But again, kudos to the Jets for a good game plan and well-timed calls for them.